also talking about a lack of clarity. There's a confusion about your sexual experience and that kind of guilt that overlays it and makes it more confusing. Yeah.
Sometimes someone who's been abused will go into a distracted behavior and like obsessive compulsive activities and behaviors.
And isn't also, just sort of any lack of clarity of being present? Generally anything that distorts you, you must define them. That's, I'm curious to hear you define them, but isn't there such a wide range?
It is huge, and every single thing that we're talking about here can have 1,000 other causes too. It's not like if you see these signs and you know somebody's had some sexual trauma. You have to feel into it, and it's the art of this practice, is the intuition and the slow following of the signs that the client brings to you. You want to step into this when they're ready to go into it, when they're giving you enough permission request. And you're following the clues that they're giving you. And you don't know necessarily, if it's going to take them into sexual trauma. But I think one develops an intuition for when there's something to track. I think maybe one of the other defining things that I would say in terms of what I call sexual trauma is what happens in the nervous system in response to something, which I'm going to be speaking about more. There's another interesting clue that I get about possible sexual trauma, and it's overperformance. Top performers. Like perfectionism, top performers running around, conquering the world. For women, often very difficult to be in their feminine if there's some deep trauma that's not acknowledged. And the nature, of course, of sexual trauma is that usually it is unconscious, as we said in the beginning, because it was too much at that point to deal with. So it goes into the unconscious, and the more traumatic it was for the psyche, the being, the more suppressed it's going to be.
The thing is that sort of trauma, it can be as much as a young child not getting touched.
Exactly, yeah.
Which is, the opposite of the invasive view. It can be the absence of...
Yeah, neglect, very much too. Or not even, that neglect is even putting a label on it, but as in Rahasya's his explanation there, it can be something that an adult did with all the love in the world, but for the child at that point, all of us at some point are going to have to stop being breastfed, and it might be traumatic for us. So, yes. But then, so that's...
We're all weaned short. If you let a kid carry on drinking, the Chinese empress proved, 16 years old, they're still going to be sucking on the tit if they get... That's the way of it. The longest breastfeeder I know, about 4.5, she eventually forces the kid off. But everyone's got to force the kid off.
You've seen that in Britain,
I know. Some cultures have put chilies on the nipples even to shock, to let the baby know this has gone bad now.
Okay, so what I want to talk about next is how does the unconscious become conscious? So what is in the unconscious, this memory, this body memory, how does it become conscious? And the first way that it becomes conscious or gets shown to the being, to your being, and or to the person who's working with you is through body or cellular memory. Your body gives the signals. So a very clear way in which that will show sexually is through the response of genitals, very simply. For a woman, dryness or contraction, vaginismus. For a woman, often, for a man, often some kind of erectile dysfunction or overfunctioning, underfunctioning. That's kind of one. It's not necessarily about sexual trauma, but it can show like that. Also, what I see quite often in my work is that once you start moving the sexual energy up the chakras, this part of the body, over the torso here, and if you've built up enough energy in the person's body, and say, for instance, they've got trauma around things tribal, things to do with how the world perceives them. So, for instance, one of my clients got discovered the first time she made love to a boy, her mother discovered her, and it was hell. Hell broke loose. So the reaction of her tummy to any touch is like shock. And it's also because I'm working with intention with this. I'm literally kind of guiding the energy through the chakras with my touch until it gets to a point where it gets felt in the body. And then I'll talk more about this, but the process is then to just allow the body's response. Wherever that hits, it could be that somebody felt really betrayed, and then it kind of hits around here, and the body goes into either pain, contraction, vomiting, nausea, disorientation. All sorts of body responses can happen. Also freezing, numbness, coldness. I've had this quite a few times in my practice too, that there are just areas in the body, or even the whole body, that doesn't feel, it just cannot feel. I've had it with one of the women that I've worked with, that she just cannot feel anything sexually. And it took a process of me basically following her eroticism, which is what I'm going to be talking about now, to get her to that place of feeling. Maybe I should talk about that now. One of the ways in which we work to help people to find the trauma, to touch that place of the trauma, is that we follow the eroticism. So this dictum of Plato, eros leads to gnosis. Your eroticism, your fantasies, your desires are messages from your unconscious. So if you think about it, your sexuality comes through your body response. Okay, you either get wet or you don't. So it's very much through the body. The body is giving the signal that this is kinky, this is erotic, this turns me on. So now if somebody has a fantasy, an erotic fantasy that keeps recurring for them and is hot, if you take that fantasy and you give the person an opportunity to explore it in whatever way is appropriate, what will happen is that what wanted to be revealed in the unconscious will become conscious, will get felt through the body. And what I mean by it will become conscious is not necessarily that you will cognitively understand. It's that the body will feel whatever it didn't have the chance to feel. And so because of that, the unwinding of the tension will happen in the body.